One of the newest shiny objects that OpenAI just released to the world is the Realtime API, which is basically a fancy way to be able to use their advanced voice systems in any application. A lot of people, including myself, really want to try it out and see how it stacks up against the other competition in the voice agent space. So I spent the majority of this weekend trying to put together the code that it would take to actually bring this to fruition, and more importantly, create a way that it would be accessible to everyone to tinker and iterate using the Realtime API. In this video, I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions that don't require you to understand a single line of code. I'm going to let you plug and play into my code to just enter a few keys, set up a few accounts, and be up and running in a matter of minutes. More specifically, I'm going to cover a quick explanation of what the Realtime API actually is, the simple process I've put together to get your own AI phone agent up and running, how to set up everything using just a few clicks and some basic account creation, and what you can actually do with this once it's set up. If you don't know who I am, my name is Mark, and I've been running my own AI automation agency called Prompt Advisors for the past 2 years. I have over a decade of experience in AI, and I've had my fair share of experiences with voice agents. I'm now going to jump straight into some slides to make this concept and process as easy as possible for you, regardless of your actual technical background. So let's dive right in. All right, so if you're getting started with the Realtime API, there are a few key things that you should be aware of. So why should we care in general about this new thing called the Realtime API? First of all, it's one of the few times that you can actually talk to OpenAI's advanced voice systems outside of the ChatGPT mobile app. And the goal of this is ultimately to create conversational experiences that are as real-time and as human-like as possible. Now, the next thing you need to know is that because of the way they've built it, using what's called a Websocket infrastructure, if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. It just means that these conversations are more programmed to be live, meaning you send a response, and because that response doesn't have to be translated into text and back into speech, you can take advantage of that space in the middle to lower the latency between you saying something to the AI and you getting a response in real time, which is why it's called the Realtime API. And the last component is there are some speech-to-speech models out there. There's a couple by Google, but this is one of the few that are probably commercially available and accessible to the general public. So to make this possible, two companies work together on this specific project or API, which is OpenAI and a company called Twilio. Twilio provides the calling infrastructure, whereas OpenAI provides the brain, the LLM, and the infrastructure to actually maintain a back and forth speech-to-speech conversation. Now, if you've never heard of what Twilio is in general, it's pretty much a company that specializes in any form of inbound or outbound calling or even emailing using their product called SendGrid that's very developer friendly, and you can buy a number, have some form of services or automations be kicked off from an inbound or an outbound call from that number, and it really facilitates that calling part of the infrastructure. All right, so how this works in a nutshell is imagine you are making an inbound call to this number. So you call the number that you've purchased on Twilio, and then on Twilio, you have a way to kick off this automation through a trigger, and that trigger then talks to a microservice. A microservice could be literally any cloud provider that has the code that I'm going to give you to be able to call the Realtime API. So then it triggers that conversation to be executed by the Realtime API, and then you send speech to OpenAI's large language model that's facilitating this conversation, and you create this feedback loop between the speech being sent, the response being sent, until that conversation comes to an end, and then it sends a notification back to, in this case, Replit, saying, hey, it looks like the conversation's dead, and then Twilio knows the conversation is dead as well, so this whole process stops. But you can see here, without something like Twilio, you have no means to start that execution of that conversation using something like a landline phone or a mobile number. Now, I'm giving a bit of a spoiler, but if I'm answering the question, is this better than existing voice agent platforms? Then after going back and forth on the code for hours and trying it for different use cases, I can definitively say that I don't think so, and it's not ready for showtime just yet, especially for AI voice agent use cases. Now, I'm not going to go into too much depth as to why I don't think so just yet. Once we actually build this out, I'll give my thoughts near the end of the video to go more into the nitty-gritty. But at a very high level, the cost is very prohibitive. It's anywhere from 20 cents a minute to 30 cents a minute, depending on how many messages are exchanged, how long those messages are, and I don't like the variability of that cost. In addition to that, there's a lot of randomness in the calls. Sometimes, depending on how you configure the parameters, the AI ends up talking to itself, or it ignores you when you try to interrupt it, irrespective of how you play with those parameters. So for me, that's not a very useful experience. And with other providers in the voice space, such as Bland, Vappy, Synflow, etc., this is not something you have to deal with anymore. So if you are a business owner and you were waiting for this moment to be able to use the real-time API for an inbound receptionist use case, then honestly, at this point in time, there are better options. But just like everything, it's worth actually knowing how to trial this and build it out so you can see for yourself and double check that for your use case, this could or could not be a very viable and scalable way to actually operate. Now, if you have zero technical expertise whatsoever and you've seen other tutorials out there, you'll see they're very code intensive because honestly, the way this API was designed, it's not for the faint of heart when it comes to putting it together. So if you're telling me, hey, help, I don't know how to code, I'm happy to tell you that my goal today is I just need you to click some buttons, pay for Twilio if you actually already have a Twilio account and you need to buy a new number. Otherwise, you could probably get away with using it for free and just get and fund an OpenAI key. That's the only guaranteed cost you have because it's going to actually be having that conversation back and forth using the funds on your OpenAI key. So that's going to be pivotal to making this work from a paid perspective. Now, in terms of the workflow, I'm going to simplify this as well conceptually before we dive in so you're fully aware of what we're doing without having to actually read the code or copy paste the code and asking ChatGPT to break it down for you. So pretty much what we're going to do is you're going to fork my Replit code. And what that means in plain English is you're going to take a link that will be available for you in the Gumroad description down below. And then you're going to click on that link. You're going to click on fork. And assuming you have a Replit account, it will copy paste my code to your account. If you don't have an account, just sign up for one. You'll be able to run this at least within the environment for free. But if you want it to be able to be available and online on an available basis, you will need to subscribe to their $25 a month plan, which is called the core plan. The next step is we're going to have to create a Twilio account, which is something we already talked about. On that Twilio account, if you've never made one, you'll have to confirm your identity, and that's a part you'll have to do on your own time. It should only take you, assuming you have any ID at your disposal, like a driver's license or a passport, 5 to 10 minutes to actually do that. And again, that's only if you already have a Twilio account and you need to upgrade to be able to buy more than one number. Now, if you have a paid account, you'll need to buy a new number. Otherwise, if you have a free account, it comes with a free number with a small number of credits that you can use. And then assuming that you want it to be ongoing and on at all times, we'll have to deploy this Replit code so you can actually call the number that you bought on Twilio at any time and have it pick up and talk to your AI agent. Otherwise, if you purely just want to experiment with this, you can even get away with not deploying this code, meaning again, you don't have to pay that fee to deploy this on a server. If we do deploy this code, you'll get some URL that ends in .app. This is what we'll have to put into the Twilio webhook, which is what I referred to before on that previous slide, is going to be here. So in Twilio, the name of the app that we're going to deploy in Replit, this is going to be the part that sends that notification to that service in Replit to tell it, hey, start having a conversation and start the back and forth conversation. And once this system is ready to go, the workflow is going to be very simple. You call the number that you bought on Twilio. Twilio is going to route that call to Replit, which is what you're going to use my code for. Replit's going to process that call, and OpenAI is going to go back and forth until the conversation is done, generating responses in real time. And to get started, all we need again is a Twilio account, an OpenAI account that is funded with credits. It doesn't have to be too much, could be $5 to $10. You'll learn the hard way that after you have 5 to 10 minutes worth of conversations, you're going to use that credit up pretty quickly. And the last thing, if you want to be able to deploy this, I'm going to be using Replit because that's my favorite service to use. If you want to be able to deploy it, it'll be $25. Otherwise, you can test it out by clicking run in memory and doing that for free. All right, so I've set the stage and now we'll dive into how to do this process step by step in just a few minutes. Now, the end result of what we're going for is that you have a system that's live, that you can ideally go into this command center that I've set up, a very basic front end that's super non-developer friendly. And you can say, you act like you are a zookeeper instructor. No idea where that came from. It's random, but it'll work. You choose a voice. I'll choose Shimmery here. You choose a silence timeout, and this is pretty much how long the system waits until you stop talking before it starts talking. And then you have a threshold, which is how sensitive is it to background noise or noise in general. There's no real end scale. It goes from like 0 to, you can make it like 1, 1.5, etc. I noticed that 0.4 was okay, but in general, I found that it wasn't very good at being interrupted. Sometimes OpenAI will steamroll you. But again, that's for later. We can just set it up for now. And ideally, you can click on Update Configuration. It'll say configured successfully, and it'll be updated in real time. So you don't have to actually go into any code, change any prompts or any parameters yourself and redeploy or deploy, especially if those words scare you. You can just go to the number you've called, and ideally, this is actually applied in real time.
Hello, welcome to our virtual zoo experience. I'm your zookeeper instructor today. How can I assist you on your journey through the animal kingdom?
Yeah, can you tell me how I should talk to the penguins, please?
When talking to penguins, it's important to be calm and gentle. Penguins are very social and curious birds.
All right, so you get the idea. It applied instantly, so you can really have back and forth conversations very quickly and iterate and see what's possible from your mini command center here without you building it yourself. I spent the hours to build it, so let's see how we can bring this to reality. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to click here. I'm going to click on copy in this case, and we'll just copy from here. All right, and to set it up, we'll go into my incognito window here. I'm going to log in using an account that ideally doesn't actually have a paid account. So I'm just going to sign in here. All right, and when you go in, if you've never had a Replit account before, you'll see a greeting like this, and you will see that you are on the starter plan. So you just have to fill out this little thing. I'll just say Mark Kashif, and then I'll say for work, I am intermediate, and then you clicked your role, whatever, and then it tells you, hey, if you want to use Replit Core, build annually, it's this much per month. Obviously, if you don't want to do annually, you can do per month. It will be $25 if you go with the monthly plan. And that lets you have unlimited Replits, be able to do a lot of deployments, and you get credits for those deployments. So I will just click on here. I'll go with starter. For our paid plan, I'll show you my actual account. And what we want to do here is we want to actually fork the Replit that I put together. So this link you'll find in that Gumroad in the description below. Once again, if you click on it, you will see something like this that says fork. You want to click on fork and then call it whatever. So you can call it the same thing. You can fork it, and then you'll get a little tour of the app. So I'm just going to skip that myself for now. And you'll see all the code that I've put together here. And there should be two main files, config.json, index.js, and then I have the HTML that actually builds that command center. So the idea is when you click on run here, it's going to say that the API key is missing because it's not actually going to transition mine to yours. So you have to go and actually get yours to configure it. So if we go back to my other screen and we go to chat, if you go to platform.openai.com, you'll see a screen something like this. You want to go to dashboard, and then you want to click on API keys, and then you want to create a new secret key. And then we'll just call this my voice agent trial, and we'll click on to create key. And then we'll take this key and we'll go back into Replit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go down and scroll into secrets here, and you'll see a little notification button with a little red dot. That means it's missing. You want to click on that secret, go to the value, paste that key, click add secret, and then we're going to go and try to run once again. You should get a preview of the actual UI that I just showed you, and then you shouldn't have any errors here. You should have something that says AI server is listening on port 5050, which means you can theoretically send a call here once we actually have somewhere to send this service to. So before we go on this part, we have to now create an account on Twilio. So I'll go to here, and then I will start for free. All right, so in this case, I'm going to do a Google sign in. So I'm going to do sign with Google. I'm going to sign in with my account, continue, and then I will just put in my phone number here. And once you're verified, you want to take a screenshot of this recovery code. So I like to do this, save it to my desktop, and then click continue. And then you want to just fill out the actual description. So I'll just put business here, direct, developer, minimal code, something else, voice, and then we'll click let's go. All right, and then you'll see this main landing page. What you want to do is you want to go to phone numbers, click on buy a number, and then you'll see here at the very top you have a trial with $15.50. It allows you to buy one number. Once you surpass that, it asks you to upgrade your account to fund it with an X amount to be able to buy other numbers. So in this case, we are just going to look. I'm in Canada, so I'm just going to go to Canada here. Well, it would be super cool if I could spell. There we go. So I'm going to go into locality, and I'm going to say the Toronto region, and then we'll search, and then it will find numbers near that municipality. So I'm just going to click this number. I'm going to click on buy. You have to scroll down, click on I agree, buy the number, and there you go. It's purchased, again, for free. So this is the number we'll be actually routing our calls to from the Replit service. All right, so now we have the Replit set up. We have the Twilio key, we have the API key, and one thing I forgot that I just want to make sure that you understand, if you already don't have an OpenAI key, if we go back to keys here and we go to usage, then you'll see how much I've spent this month. You will have to make sure that your account is funded. So I won't go to my billing necessarily, but you have to go to settings, you have to go to billing, and then you should have some balance. So in my case, I always have an upload of $100 for a top up. In your case, you can make it $5 to $10, but you need to absolutely make sure this works. Otherwise, you'll get an error in Replit or whatever service you deploy this on saying insufficient funds or you can't access the API. So this is very pivotal that you make this happen. Put $10, I would say, with an automatic top up once you get to $5, and then you should be good to go. Okay, so now that we have everything, we're going to take a shot at taking this number and testing this out at least for free before I show you what we need to do to actually deploy it. So if you go into Replit, you'll see here, if you click on new dev tab, you get that command center that we saw on my other screen, which should work as long as you have this running. So the whole point of paying to deploy it is that technically it always stays on. Otherwise, if you do stop and you refresh, you'll see this won't work because the server is not actually live. So like I promised, we want to just click things and paste things. So what we want to do is we want to go into Replit and then take the new tab. We want to click on copy link address, and in Twilio, in here, just make sure this is set on webhook, TWIML, bin, function, etc. And then make sure this, when it says a call comes in, is set onto webhook. Primary handler fails, make it again webhook. And then make sure this is HTTP post, this is disabled, and these are both post. And then what you want to put in this URL, you want to delete it, and you want to paste in what we just copy pasted from Replit. Now you'll notice this very annoying and weird double slash at the end. We want to take one of them out and replace it with incoming dash call. Why do we have to add that? It's somewhere in the code. It's called a route that basically creates the bridge between Twilio and the real-time API. If you're a developer, take a look at the code and you'll find it. Otherwise, now we just go down, we click on Save Configuration, and now that's all saved. So technically, when you call this number, it should send a hook to Replit. And assuming that Replit is on, it should be able to have that conversation. Now in here, you'll see if you click on this file called config.json, the standard prompt is you are a Moroccan tour guide, and that's what you see here. So we can make this, you are a Parisian tour guide. Probably spelled that wrong for sure. I'm going to change this to a different voice. I'm going to click on update configuration. And because it's running, if I go back here, you'll see it updated. You are a Parisian tour guide, Shimmer. And this is what's being communicated to the API in terms of what are my settings. So theoretically, if I give a call to this number, it should present itself, assuming we've set up everything proper. All right, so we're ready to call, and we'll just tap on this right now, and let's see what we get.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Hello.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Paris. Que puis-je faire pour vous aujourd'hui?
I want to know how to go to the Eiffel Tower and eat croissants.
Pour aller à la Tour Eiffel depuis l'Arc de Triomphe, vous pouvez marcher, prendre le métro ou un taxi. Voici les options. À pied, C'est une agréable promenade d'environ 30-40 minutes en descend l'avenue Kléber. Prenez la ligne 6 à la station Charles de Gaulle-Étoile en direction de Nantes.
Okay, so if you don't speak French, then that wouldn't make any sense to you. But what you can see here is, one, we're able to initiate that call, and you'll notice that preface there that you get that message that says, hey, you don't have a paid account, so as such, you won't be able to directly talk to it. You'll first have that agent, then you'll press on a key, and then you'll be able to have a conversation with it. And then here you can see on the bottom right hand side of the Replit, you can see the back and forth conversation in real time, which is super cool. You can even see when I actually hung up the phone just now and disconnected. So you know now that this works, and obviously to make it more production grade, you'd have to upgrade your Twilio account to a paid one. So if you go to upgrade here, you'll be able to pay for that upgraded account, and you'll have to actually validate yourself and your identity to actually make sure you're eligible for it. And then once that's good, then on the Replit side, you'll actually have to deploy it. So deploying is actually not difficult. You just go to deploy, and then you want to go to auto scale, and then you'll have to upgrade your plan. So this is where you have to do that payment for either an annual or $25 a month. And just to show you what it would look like, I'll go to my actual Replit account here where I have this deployed. And if we go to deployments, you will end up clicking deploy, which will look like this. If you click on redeploy, you'll see it's going to go through the process of deploying it. It's going to ask you to come up with a name for the app. You can name this app whatever you want. You want to go with the standard configuration. And what I'll do, just purely for the purposes of this demo, is I'll actually break my deployment to show you how to do it from scratch, just so that you have the end-to-end approach of how this works. Now, one key thing when I was testing while this is actually deploying is when you go to Twilio, sometimes when you go to your active numbers and you actually call this account, don't just dial 289-207-5329. You'll actually get something which tells you, hey, this number's not available. Make sure you actually enter the area code of whatever number you buy. So if it's +1, make sure you actually enter +1. Otherwise, you'll be in a death loop that you think that this tutorial's not working, the code's not working, but it's actually you missed that one detail. All right, so deployed, and I'll just go here and I'll purposely break my deployment by shutting it down. I'm just going to remember my actual domain name here because it's actually a pretty one. So I'm going to say change deployment type, and then I'll click on auto scale. So auto scale is useful if you want to have, again, one-off conversations. Reserved VM means like all the service is on all the time, but it is expensive to run. So we'll just click on auto scale. We'll click on the standard settings. So you don't have to reconfigure those. We'll name it. And now hopefully no one stole my domain name. I'll just take out this part. There we go. It's still available. And your key that you entered from before, your OpenAI key, will already be a part of this deployment. So you click on deploy. And then again, it'll go from the process from the beginning. Now, the very first time you deploy, it'll take anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. And then if you want to change or alter the code for whatever reason, it'll only take you usually 1 to 2 minutes max. All right, and then you'll get a resulting URL just like this. Now, we're not fully done. Assuming you actually want this deployed in Twilio as well, we want to take this URL, and then we want to go into Twilio and then click back into here. And then we want to just replace this URL. This URL is for if you want to just try Replit for free, you click run on server, so the server's on and you can actually test it. What we want to do is we want to replace this with the actual app that's live and is now accessible. You can add that slash again. You'll have to say incoming call. And then once you go down and click save configuration, when I call this now, it should talk to my other deployment on my paid account, which if you remember the actual UI, I put it as you are a zookeeper instructor. So if I call that same number, I shouldn't get a French speaker, I should get a zookeeper. So we're just gonna pull that up again.
Hello, how can I assist you today in our wonderful zoo? Are you interested in learning about our animals, or do you have any specific questions about zookeeping?
Awesome. So you'll see that worked perfectly. And now we're able to access this real-time API. And one key caveat here is for standard deployment on that auto scale, it won't work if you want to call it when it's not running. It'll just be more stable. If you actually want this to be callable outside of Replit, like if you close this tab fully, what you want to do is in your deployments, you want to deploy this as a reserved VM. Now, there is a cost associated to this. There's like a credit you can have. I think it's around $10 with the core plan. And once you exceed that credit, it bills you at a certain amount. Usually it comes out to anywhere from 12 to 25 bucks extra on top of the membership a month. So if you actually want this live and functioning, this is where things get very expensive, right? Because you have the cost of the OpenAI API, you have the cost of Replit or whatever microservice you're using, you have the cost to actually keep it live and open 24/7, which is the first option again, which is the reserved VM option, and that's what allows you to actually call it. And what we had to do here is take this, put it into Twilio, add incoming call, save it, redeploy instead of auto scale, actually deploy it using the reserved VM, and now you actually have something that you can call on a continual basis. So I've been talking through it quite a bit, but pretty much in a nutshell, you're doing a few things. You're creating a Twilio account, you're creating a Replit account, you're creating an OpenAI key that you fund, and assuming that you actually just want to try this out, you can get away with Replit, clicking on run and making sure the session's running, and then right-clicking on the actual semi-deployment here and clicking copy link address. Then you can paste it here, release one of those slashes, put incoming call, and then you can test it out in that environment to see how it would work. And if you actually want to use this in a production environment, if you do want to use this for your business or personal use, then you do want to deploy, pay the amount for Replit, assuming you're okay with using Replit, using the reserved VM, and then allowing that and replacing the deployment link that you get here back in Twilio with that slash incoming call. If we just do this one more time, we'll just take this and then you can actually open up this tab, and now you can actually use this command center to update the caller as you go. And if you go back into Twilio, you can paste this, put incoming slash call, save the configuration at the bottom, and then now your calling agent is ready to be called by anyone at any time. All right, so you'll find the code and everything I just mentioned in the Gumroad link in the description below. This took hours to put together, including the actual UI here, to try to make it as easy as possible for you to configure your agent once it's live and up and running. So if you do want to support the channel, I'd love you for it. If not, take it on the house, experiment with it. And the one thing I'll say that I alluded to before is by no means is this real-time API really ready for showtime. It's cool. It's going to be super cool moving forward for a lot of applications in 3 to 6 months. But for now, the biggest thing that I might use this application for is for speech-to-speech interfaces like AI avatars, where that wasn't a thing before. So for voice calling, inbound or outbound, I wouldn't consider this at all. So if you are looking for that solution and you were hoping this was the answer to your problems, what I'm going to do is myself and my co-founder Taha, who we both run Inbound Agent, which is our AI receptionist service, we're going to film a much larger video showing you end to end what providers are out there, including the real-time API, and where it fits in the general landscape of building voice agents for your business. So you might want to sub to the channel to make sure you get notified when that comes out. And if this content helped you out and saved you some time, I'd super appreciate if you left a like on the video, a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.